So this idea, I believe that God gave to me a while back to have this hero of mine, Mr. Harvey, come speak to us. It is an honor and a privilege. It's also a little bit scary because I have no clue what he's going to say. But I guess we're about to find out. Just so you'll know a little bit of his background, he is a World War II vet. There was a book that one of the soldiers wrote, William Rutherford wrote this book, 165 Days, a story of the 25th Division of Luzon. And so this, I got a copy of this years ago, and he signed it, wrote in it. This is one of my treasures. But he's going to talk about some of those stories here. And I also want to share with you today that this vet had a story. He was, we were at a dedication service 3 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago. And Rome News Tribune was there and met Mr. Harvey and wrote a story. And so this is a great story, and I'm going to make some copies of this and share with you. I've got a few of these, and so it's a great story. But Mr. Harvey, just tell us, about. Let's go all the way back to 1943.
Okay.
When you lived in Cave Spring, and tell us about your salvation experience.
Well, I was first. I'd just like to say good morning to everybody, and thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm not a speaker, and as you'll find out, but all I can do is just relate to you what happened to me during the war. That's what Brian asked me to do. So I'll not waste time with other stuff. So I was turned 19. I was drafted, but I got a year deferment. I was farming, and I needed the cotton to use in the military stuff. So they gave me a year deferment, and so I went in service in 44. I went to Fort McPherson, was inducted into the Army, sent from there to Fort McClellan, Alabama, for 16 weeks of basic training. After the 16 weeks, I went home just before Christmas for about 3 days. Then I left to go to New Orleans. From New Orleans, I went on a troop train to San Francisco, California. And in San Francisco, Fort Ord, California. And then we was transferred up to the ship to San Francisco. But anyway, when I was at Fort Ord, they had to have a quarter on each ship, so many people that they sent out. And they would send 5 or 6 of us down the ship each morning. And I was unlucky enough to get picked and have to fill in with the different groups that I trained with. But it didn't make any difference. We were all soldiers and the same training. And so we left San Francisco, and we was on the boat right at 40 days before we pulled into New Guinea. And we pulled into New Guinea for refueling, and that was the first encounter I had with the enemy. This Commissariat pilots, when they left home, they were not to return. They had to fly in with a plane.
Is that the Japanese pilots?
Yeah, that was the Japanese pilot. And they just stayed in the plane and hit whatever target they were assigned to. And I guess that was their way of honoring their country. But anyway, that was the first encounter. This one of these pilots came right in towards the ship that I was on, but there happened to be 2 ships there, right side by side. He hit the one that I wasn't on and knocked a big hole in it. Killed a few of the boys, but they saved the ship. And we was there for a few days, and then we left and moved on into the Philippine Islands. And the first island we went to was Leyte Island. we had some combat on it, but it wasn't as heavy as what we got into later. So when we finished with the island of Leyte, we moved then to Luzon. Luzon was one of the bigger islands, and it was closer to the homeland of Japan. That is the old saying is, if you'll pardon my expression, that's where all hell broke loose. And we was in combat 165 straight days, taking the island of Luzon. And it's all in the paper there that I wrote, and maybe you'll get a chance to read some of it. But I can highlight a little of the things that happened. We went into Manila. There was 3 units of us. Am I taking too much time here?
No. While he's doing this, I'm gonna just interject this real quick. You know, when we were talking about doing this, and Mr. Harvey says, well, you know, and finally he says, well, okay. But one of the things he says, the young people need to know this. And it's true, the young people need to know. It was, I think, 1919, I believe I'm right, when Woodrow Wilson had the first Armistice Day, and that was the end of the fighting in a year anniversary of the fighting in World War I. In 1954, I believe it is, and I could be wrong, but 1954, we changed Armistice Day to Veterans Day to remember our veterans. And why are we remembering this in church? Because, listen, a lot of people around the world don't understand this. We are in one of the most unique countries ever. We're a republic, and we have freedom to worship and freedom to be here. And so that's why we have an American flag in here, because it's a free place, and we want to keep that freedom. And we want to thank men like this right here for preserving that freedom. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. Are you taking too long? Absolutely not. Keep on going. Yeah.
Let's see, where was I at?
Yeah, Manila, fighting on Manila.
Yeah, there was 3 ships that we were on. We pulled into Manila, was the capital of it was on Luzon Island, and it was the capital of the Philippines. The ship that I was on went in on the left side of Manila. I was in the 161st Infantry Division. We went in the left side. The 27th went in through Manila, and 35th went in on the right of Manila. And that's the way we went abreast across that island. And from the time we started from the beach, it was continuously combat till we went all the way through the island, 165 days of it. And the island was made up of steep mountains, some just straight up and then straight down. And we had a lot of trouble. We had to winch our vehicles up the mountain with dozers. The Japanese, this highway, Deer Bird Trail, they call it. At that time, it was Highway 5, and it went from Manila over the mountains to the other side of the island. It was the only route across the island. And on top of that mountain was called the Lady Pass. And up there, they had a big cave and a big gun mounted in that cave on tracks. They could, had steel doors on it. They could roll it out, fire a few rounds on us, and run it back in there. And we like to never got it out. But with the help of the Air Force and all, they kept bombing and finally got the doors off the cave. And I was able to get the gun out. But all of that time, we were fighting up these mountains, and they were looking right down, had that gun zeroed in on us all the time, and we didn't know it. And then there was a lot of times that you never thought you was going to make it. But anyway, especially at night, we would dig in a circle, and we would tie a string or whatever we could get from one to the other, so we'd have a complete view. And if one heard something, he'd pull on that, so that we, you didn't doze off to sleep, but in case you did, you'd be, they'd wake you. And that was just part of combat. People that has never been in combat cannot understand it. You can talk about it, but you won't ever be able to understand it. And it's just a continuous fear, wonder. You got to be alert every second. And so that is pretty much what combat is. You have anything you want to?
Well, you and I had talked, so back to 1943, you got saved in a revival meeting at Rehoboth.
Yeah.
And so you just tell a little bit about how you leaned on the Lord through this.
Well, if it hadn't been for him, I would have never did it.
Yeah.
Because I talked to him a lot, and
If you what is it? If you're not religious, you learn how to be religious in the foxhole. And I think that somebody said that. So if you're not religious, you get religious in the foxhole. Yeah.
I've always heard that there's no atheist in the foxhole.
There you go. That's right. Yeah.
And I believe it. But anyway, the bigger trail was the one that, as I said, went across, and we had to take that trail. And let's see, some of the experiences, I will relate to this gun that they got up here.
Yes.
It was on the island of Luzon there, and it was, I think a 205 howitzer. It shoots big shells. One of those shells landed, almost hit my foot one day, and it blew me about 20 feet. And I was in the hospital, and when I say hospital, it was just a tent set up there close to the line, that they could patch you up and get you back into the line quick. So I was in it for 8 days, and then I went back to the line. And that shell blew me about 20 feet, and it took me about 3 weeks there to get it all together again. And it was like that the whole time through the 165 days. And some of the other things, old Pistol Pete is the one that shot the shell.
That's the name of the gun on Highway 27.
Well, that's the name we put on it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how it got here, but some veteran group has got it, and they've got it anchored up here on the left side of the highway going into Rome. And if you get a chance, well, just drive by there and look at it. They've restored it. And it had wooden wheels on it. And over the years, the wheels had decayed, and they restored it and put new woodwork in the wheels. And they gave me one of the spokes that came out of the wheels, and I've still got it. And then some other things that happened, it was just one thing right after another as far as combat. I mean, you can talk about combat all day and still not get it all out. But
well, you never really get it out of your system either, do you? I mean, so if y'all don't know by now, this man is 68. How old are you? He's 98 years old. Okay, he's 98 years old. I'm 39. He's 98. He's 98 years old, and just so, and relatively speaking, this was just a short time period in his life, but you never forget it, and it's always been.
I never forget it. No, once you're there, it stays with you.
Yes.
And how many of you, did any of you have a person, a relative killed in the service? If you did, I don't want to get too graphic about it. hardest things that you could be standing there talking with your buddy, and all of a sudden it's just like that, you just drop.
And they're gone, yeah.
They're gone. And then, it was just like that every day and night. So to get on through with the 165 days, we had a lot of close calls. And they had planned on us going to be the first ones to go into the homeland of Japan, because Luzon was one of the bigger islands. It was the closest to the homeland of Japan. And when we was finishing up on that island, which we did finish it, and we was ready to get on the ship to go to Japan, and there was counting 80% casualties on our side the first 3 days. They tried to go into Japan. But before the ship left, there was a storm came up, a typhoon came through, and we was delayed 3 days there before we had to leave to go to Japan. Well, during that 3 days, they dropped the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima, I believe.
Yes.
And then 3 days later, they dropped another one on Nagasaki. And I was there after the bomb, where the bomb hit. One of the towns lay in a valley, in a long valley. There was not a thing left in that town but one wall of one brick building about the center of the town. And the sidewalks, cement along the sidewalks, it was so hot, it was just rolled up like plastic, just curled up like plastic. It was just so hot. And there wasn't a thing left, it was just flattened out, the whole town.
So thank God for the typhoon, huh? Thank God for the typhoon, yeah, that delayed you.
That's all it said. It and the bomb that dropped. Of course, that second bomb they dropped is when they ended the war.
Yes.
So they gave up. And we were supposed to be the first group. Well, we was already loaded, headed to get to Japan. But anyway, that's some of the highlights of it.
Well, tell us about. I had Judith put in the bulletin the reconnaissance mission, and so tell us what a reconnaissance is. It's where you go out and see what you're up against, right? And so this is just a really interesting story that he has, and it goes on further into even when you got back to Seattle, Washington, you're always thinking that there's bullets and things coming your way.
Well, they would choose 4 of us and send us on a reconnaissance patrol. We would leave our lines, we would slip through the enemy lines and go in behind their lines and scout to see what they had, where it was, and what all they had to fight with. And that was very dangerous. You didn't move fast. You just ease along one step at a time, and you didn't miss a movement or nothing. And as soon as we could find out what we would need to know, we would have to slip back into our lines. And it was dangerous going back into our lines too. And But that was our mission on a reconnaissance patrol, and that was one of the worst parts of the whole thing. Because you couldn't count on the next minute. It was just a minute by minute experience.
Tell them about in the reconnaissance mission when the Japanese saw you guys.
Well,
I guess that was me. I don't know. Sorry.
Anyway, there was 4 of us, and we had went down, those mountains were just straight down and straight up. And we went down this mountain, and we got down to the bottom of it, and there was a ravine up here, a big hollow, and it was full of Japanese soldiers. And they had an outpost. One was sitting out here as a guard duty, to alert them. Well, I was walking up behind this clump of trees, and I looked to my left, and the boy named Gordy, he was, get down. Well, I knew there was something on the other side of that tree, and he raised his gun up, fired, and when he did, I heard a shot from behind the tree. When he shot the Japanese that was in his foxhole, and when they did that, we turned and started back the way we had come down the mountain. They opened fire on us from across a little creek with a machine gun. And a guy named Vaden and I dived behind a rock in a little dry creek bed. And I thought the rock was getting smaller and smaller, but those bullets were bouncing off of it, and it was digging the ground up on each side of us. And another boy, and I never did know his name, but he had got up on a little ledge over to our left, right, and he said, when I open fire, y'all come out of there now. Well, he started shooting towards the machine gun, but it had been fired on us. And that first shot, boy, we came out. I always say we outrun the bullets back up that mountain. we tried anyway, but anyhow, we got back. It got back up to our unit and reported everything, and they had the Air Force come in, and they used those little T-38 planes, if you're familiar with them. They had 2 fuselages. And they had one incendiary bomb underneath each one. And an incendiary bomb is when you drop it, it just explodes and it just set everything afire. And that's what they used, and they burned everything out of that holler that we had was fixing to run into there. And that was the last patrol that we had to go on.
Yes, sir.
And I was glad.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I want to share this scripture with us this morning from 1 Peter 5, chapter 8, and you're familiar with this. It says, be sober, of a sober spirit. Be on the alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. This man has a great story that's illustrative of the spiritual warfare that we're in, the spiritual warfare that's all around us. The Bible says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities of the air, et cetera, et cetera. And so we have this going on all around us. And so we need to know the devil's attacks on us, because he's always trying to tear us down. And we can go on a reconnaissance mission ourselves. And it's not going to be like this, that we're hiding behind a pebble, a rock. We got to know this word right here, because it teaches us everything that we need to know about Satan. It teaches us about spiritual warfare. It teaches us about being perceptive of the things that are going on around us, and we desperately need that in the world in which we live today, so that we can be successful in the kingdom of heaven, in the kingdom of God. Because I don't know if you guys know this or not, but we are at war, and there's war going on all around us. And Satan wants to destroy our churches. Satan wants to destroy our nation, the United States of America. Satan wants to destroy our families, our family units. He wants to destroy you, and he doesn't like you being here. And so be out on that reconnaissance mission every day and watching for what Satan is doing around us, that we may be successful. Harvey, thank you. I can't thank you enough. This is a question I've never asked you. So his name is John Harvey. Why does everybody call you Harvey? Why not John?
Well, that's what I've always went by, Harvey.
So it's just Harvey, yes. Well, have you got anything else you want to share with us this morning?
Yeah, I would like to, share a little bit about myself. My wife and I married March 5th, 1949. And we was married, 72 years. She passed away last, December the 7th. And she was, today was in her birthday. She would have been 100 years old today.
She robbed the cradle.
Oh, I'm right behind her. 99, it's coming up. And, so that really makes a big difference. And, but all you can do, you just have to put your trust in the Lord and just keep going, you know.
Yes, sir.
And that's about all I have.
Yes, sir.
Anything else you want to ask me?
Miss Mildred, she, of course, his life may help him through a lot of things, but man, Miss Mildred could cook. Oh my goodness, Miss Mildred could cook. And we miss that, don't we, Harvey? We miss that. Yeah. Does anybody got a question you want to ask? Anything? Any comments? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Harvey, when you came back home, what did you think about the homeland, and how did you adjust back to?
It took me about 2 years to ever get settled down. I would work, but I would just quit. I just couldn't get settled down. I was not married then. And it took me 2 full years to ever get settled down to where I was ready to marry and settle down. And you know, be a normal person again. I hope that answers your question, son. It's just something that you can't hardly describe. It's just something that just eats on you all the time, you know. But it took me 2 full years to ever get settled down to where I was back like I wanted to be.
Did you ever get to where you could eat rice? Because he would not eat rice for 20 years.
No. Well, I'll tell you this little story right quick. I drove, after I retired from GE, I drove a bus for the Royal Ford Recreation Department, and I carried seniors everywhere on different trips. And I went to the airport in Atlanta and picked up a Japanese karate team one day and brought them up here to one of the colleges, and they was going to put on a demonstration. And we stopped at a Japanese restaurant there in Atlanta on the way out, and I went in crazy like the rest of them and sat down and got to the table. They said, everybody hold up a hand. Well, I stuck my hand up. They brought a little dish out there. It had one of the biggest bones in it I ever saw. I didn't know what it was. And they had this little white bowl sitting there with a lid on it. And I kept looking at it, and I wondered what was in it. I finally got up the nerve to look, and it was white rice. And I said, okay, I'm going to eat this rice.
That's good. Anybody else? Well, thank you.
Oh,
Thank you indeed.
well, I appreciate his time and letting me come down here today. O'Brien and I go back a long ways. I have to put up with it tomorrow.
Tell it all, tell it all.
It is, I could talk a little while longer.